Welcome back, everybody, to the Wismen Say podcast powered by Yama Media. A bonus episode for you guys, I should say, previewing the Concacaf Champions Cup matchup against the Houston Dynamo. First leg Wednesday with Rudy. Is it Segura?
Perfect, man. You got it right on that.
Let's go. From Bayou City Soccer, correct?
Yes, Bayou City Soccer.
Sweet. Rudy, how are you doing, man?
Doing good, man. I wish a little bit more happy, but Dynamo ended up losing yesterday, so we're here, man. We're here.
I wish I could say the same. Columbus ended up giving up a late minute equalizer in second half stoppage time. So I mean, it is what it is.
You might as well call it a loss.
It is. But Concacaf Champions Cup this Wednesday. Rudy, you guys have already been in the competition so far. This will be our first appearance this year in the tournament. Just talk about you guys' run against St. Louis over those two legs.
Yeah, so obviously it's the start of the season. The major component that kind of kept the Dynamo going in 2023 was Hector Herrera, and not having him has made Ben Olsen do a lot of changes in the middle, trying to get some kind of chemistry going in the middle with Arthur, which you guys know perfectly being from Columbus. So Arthur has still continued to be that solid piece in the center of the field. Usually it was Hector Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla or Bassi would play in there. But with the games as of the beginning of the year, we've seen John Gregus from Minnesota step in, as well as young Brooklyn Reigns. And that partnership has been a little iffy. So at times, one of them will start, get a whole 90 minutes. The next game, one of them gets the first 45, and then the other guy finishes off. So he's just kind of trying to implement it. And the reason I said that, because even against St. Louis, the team looked well overall. The defensive scheme is still there from last year. Steve Clark keeps having Steve Clark days, just having save after save, keeping the Dynamo in the game. So that is fine, right? The big question, apart from Hector Herrera, where the goals are going to come from. Last year, one of the top scorers being Amin Bassi scored, I believe, 8 or 10 goals, and most of them were out of penalty kicks. So you can't afford thinking that you're going to go into a game scoring penalties. And he was out as well, trying to get his green card situation. So he only got a few minutes in the second game against St. Louis. Just minimal minutes, but the team has done enough in those matches against St. Louis to get over the hump and get onto the next phase. Interesting enough, like I said, if it wasn't for Clark making some pretty good saves and a bonehead play in the first leg from the young Brooklyn Reigns that ends up getting that 2-1 deficit in the first match. Things look a little good, or it looked good, but it ended with a loss in the first leg. So it's just been a little interesting of a matchup, and having a game basically every 3 days, I think it's starting to take the toll on the team, especially in the center of the field, Ty.
You guys ended up winning the second leg and advancing on away goals. What kind of stood out in the second game that should be the highlight heading into Wednesday's match against Columbus?
Yeah, so I would say the veterans. So, like, for instance, the guy that scored the goal, Eric Sviatchenko, came in at in the second half. Maybe one of the center backs, Mikael, looked like to be dealing with some kind of issue in his back. So the veteran comes in and scores a goal in the 60th minute. And if it wasn't for some of that veteran leadership that the team has currently, I just don't see them doing much. We look at the bench, and there's nothing but guys that have zero experience in a professional level. Most of them being recently picked up from college in the draft, and a couple guys from the academy. So that's the dangerous part of it. But having the leadership like Eric Sviatchenko to kind of come in, keep everybody settled, They knew that just getting one goal was really all they needed if they could keep a clean sheet, and that's exactly what happened. So that is the big thing going on. And at the end of the day, some of the players that you want to step up are like Sebastian Kovalchik, who did a great job. He got into the team late last year in August. Didn't really have any room in the team since everybody already had a role, and as of late, is getting a ton of minutes. And he's going to be a pretty nice player as long as he keeps repping some experience. But yeah, the big takeaway is just having those veteran players that can kind of settle the game down a little bit.
You talk about the team not really having too many veterans. What's it going to take for Houston to come up against like a team like Columbus that has, veterans like Nagby and Ramirez and, somebody hot like Cucho right now?
Yeah, I think when the kind of the structure of that tournament came on, and you knew that if you beat St. Louis, you were going to go against the MLS Cup winners in what is a great team in Columbus. With Hector Herrera in mind, you felt like you could hang in there, right? Like you knew that those players at the end of the day, with the Dynamo, could do what you wanted them to do in the midfield. Now, the way that it's set up and how Columbus is healthy in comparison to the Dynamo, it is very interesting the way that it's going to be set up. I don't think that the Dynamo are opening a hope is very helpful, but I don't think they're obviously any type of favoritism to that team whatsoever. They should be the underdog by quite a few goals. Now, again, having that midfield with a John Gregus, who was a DP in Minnesota, does he have exactly the same playing in him and the same rhythm to continue in that high level? I don't think so. And then you're expecting a lot from the young guys like Brooklyn Reigns in that position. Now, just looking back at the past game, the Dynamo lost at home, which is rare as of late, losing 2-1 on Saturday. They some of the main components, like Arthur, he was the one that had a really awful pass in the center of the field that gets picked up and gets put away by New York, giving them the lead. Sometimes the big issue here is, can they just stay out of their head a little bit as well? Because yes, they've been playing a lot of games. Yes, some of that questions are there, but they still have the skill and obviously the quality to hang in there. But against Columbus, you're kind of glad that the Dynamo don't have a game in between those, home and away against Columbus. So hopefully that will help them in the long run in this tournament.
You mentioned Houston doesn't have, I believe, an MLS game between the home and away legs. What will be obviously fitness is the key, right?
Right.
So with that being said, how would you see the matchup happening? Would there be more so of a heavy rotation from your recent match in MLS to Wednesday, and then having a healthy full 11 starting 11 for the away leg, or what would that kind of look like in your opinion?
Yeah, so in my opinion, I feel like we're gonna see Ben Olsen line up his best 11 on both games. Doesn't matter of obviously it's about March 6th, then you come back March 12th in Columbus. Hector Herrera is not going to be there. We know this. So he is the big piece missing. Just watching every game, he's the one that would control the ball. It's just not there. And unfortunately, Jan is not in Hector Herrera. Neither is Brooklyn Reigns, the two guys that keep getting minutes in his place. So because of that, I just feel you have to play your best team on both matches. And even the players that were, again, really good for you last year, Bassi being one of them, he was in preseason. He had to go to France to get his green card taken care of. and he came back and he just and lack of better words, he's been garbage in the sense of he just can't get it right. He's not in play form. He can't hit some of the passes that he used to hit, and it really hurts the team because it's a makeshift number 10 that hardly defends as much as Ben Olsen likes his team to do. So at times you feel like you're playing with a man down in the minutes that he's been there. Not saying that he can't completely change gears coming into this game on Wednesday, and the Dynamo really need him to step up for sure. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to talk about maybe the starting lineup, or if you want me to go through that of kind of what I'm predicting for it against Columbus or not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think kind of me and Gerald would probably talk about ours just because we had a game obviously this past Saturday, yesterday, and whatnot. So I would expect probably not a heavy rotation from Wilfried Nancy. But really quick before we move into that, just what was maybe one big low light in the second leg against St. Louis that maybe should improve heading into Wednesday's match?
Yeah, like I said, the offensive part of this game, it's they have gotten players like Gabe Segal and Ibrahim Aliyu with what was supposed to be Sebastian Ferreira's homecoming after a really, really bad 2023 personal season for him in general. He obviously, I'm sure you guys heard of this Paraguayan guy. He scored like 13 goals his first season in the MLS. Came back season 2, this time under new head coach Van Olsen. He quickly kind of just fell, I guess, out of favor with the coach. Got minutes, didn't score any goals. He was kind of starting to, I get maybe show some unhappiness. So he gets sent to Vasco da Gama, where he thought he was probably going to lit the world on fire, played a bunch of games, still 0 goals. So he came in the preseason. Everybody was thinking, man, this guy's going to be the top scorer again. He's looking fit. It looked like he's doing everything. And sure enough, without fail, in the first game of the season, he pulls a hamstring and is done for maybe a month or two. And so with that, again, him being to be the lead of the goal scoring opportunities for the Dynamo, you're relying on an unproven young U22 initiative player in Ibrahim Aliyu that was brought in from the Croatian League. He scored this weekend. He's very good. It looks like he plays or feels more comfortable out in the wing. And then they brought in recently from a trade from New York City FC Gabe Segal, which same thing. He may be more of a second striker, but currently there's none for the team. And that's something that Ben Olsen mentioned, referring to Aliyu. It's like, Aliyu, I've been putting him as a 9 because I don't have another one. So there is rumors that another player's coming in. But again, just from what this matchup against Columbus being within days, you just kind of have to play with what you have. And it was a little bit of silver lining seeing the offense of those two guys against St. Louis, and just now this weekend kind of finally get some chemistry together.
Before we talk about, what, Houston might look like, coming into the first leg of the tournament, how much of a factor is Shell Stadium going to play, a role in this? As we saw last year, the Texas Heat,
right,
on top of, your guys' fans, showing out, I believe helped you guys to what was it, Ty, a 2-0 win last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a midweek match, with Columbus having to go to Montreal right after that. So how much of a factor, with it being the Champions Cup versus MLS, is Shell Stadium going to play a factor?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question because obviously you guys roam the Twitter world. Houston always gets a bad rep of just seeing how the stadium is empty. A lot of it has been from past. The team just not doing a great job. Uh, inside and outside as an organization for the fans. And recently, the game against St. Louis was scheduled at a 9:30 p.m. game on a Tuesday night. Just awful already for Houston, a working town like Columbus is, and I believe the number was about 5,000 people, and I was there, man. There wasn't that many people there. So, unfortunately, that is when it comes to weekend games, it is difficult. And Houston being the big city that it is, there's always something happening. I think that same night was one of our biggest events of the year, being the Houston Rodeo opening night. So it was the Dynamo are always kind of fighting some kind of event happening around town. And it's not an excuse by any means, but some people just choose the better option in their eyes. So coming into this game, I don't expect any different. I don't think it's going to be a sellout crowd against Columbus as much as we would like it to be. But it has a better chance of still having a good amount of people, just because, again, it's a 7:00 game instead of a 9:30 Central Time match.
Now going into what this Houston team might look like lining up against a preferably probably heavy rotated squad like Columbus. You said Ben Olsen would probably throw out his best 11. What does that best 11 look like?
Yeah, so on goal, you'll have Steve Clark, a guy that you guys know well.
Maybe a little too well.
A little too well, for sure.
Maybe 2015, but
Yeah,
PTSD right there.
a little too well. I mean, since his arrival with Houston, he just has taken over in net for the Dynamo, and he's done a great job. It's rare to see him get scored on, and it is definitely something we are accustomed of just seeing him do some incredible saves. I think that this recent match for the MLS season, losing 2-1 against New York Red Bulls, Steve Clark does not get scored 2 goals in a game. So that kind of, I wouldn't say is worrisome, but just knowing a lot of the issues that they're trying to kink out with some major injuries to Hector Herrera and a young star in the making, and Nelson Quinones, who's out for the season, they're still kind of trying to find their feet, and they're still trying to find players to come in to fit the system that Ben Olsen does. But in goal, you would have Clark. As a right back, you'll have Griffin Dorsey, who had like an amazing 2023 season. Obviously, was one of the main components of getting the U.S. Open Cup championship for the Dynamo and the playoff run that they did. As a right center back, you're going to have the veteran Danish international in Eric Sviatchenko, a captain, a rockin', solidifies the defense for sure. Paired next to him, I will expect Mikael, young Brazilian that came in through the MLS Next Pro system. As a left back, so the left back is a little interesting. There's a lot. Franco Escobar, who was playing that role as an inverted player, being a right-footed player, he took or was moved. He it wasn't taken over. He got moved because of Dorsey to the left back position, and he just kind of ran with it. And one thing that we've been used to seeing with Ben, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if you're left-footed, right-footed. He's just going to put you where he thinks you're going to work out. And for the most part, it has been okay. And Franco Escobar, the interesting part is that there's rumors out there that Inter Miami wants him. And now that I think they're already we're announcing that Jedlin looks to be going to Cincinnati, this would make a lot of sense for maybe Escobar rumored to continue if he went to Miami. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was, in quotations, injured for this game against Columbus. But if I had to pick him, he would definitely be the one on the left back. Then in the central position, you would have Arthur as your shield. You'll probably play with John Gregus, may likely see the minutes over Brooklyn Reigns there. and alongside probably Coco Carrasquilla, who also gets shifted out wide at times. And the three on top, I would see Aliu playing out on the flank. You would play as a striker. You have Gabe Siegel and the young Polish um, attacker and Sebastian Kovacic getting those minutes. So that would be my starting 11. That really is probably the best players that the Dynamo can put out there right now.
I know. I don't know why I hit the wrong button there. I know. I know for Columbus, especially with us playing on Saturday against Minnesota, and then having a midweek match, and then having to play again on Saturday against Chicago. Columbus is looking probably like the heavy rotated squad that could be down in Houston on Wednesday, and then have preferably, I hope, a full healthy 11. I think me and Gerald are probably going to be the same ones if we put our heads together and say who we like to see. But I think I would like to see
Evan. Who's going to be in goal.
It's going to have to be Evan Bush, right?
Yeah, because Nazi's going to save Schulte for Saturday against Chicago.
Yeah, it have to be Evan Bush. I think we still see the same back three that we play: Morera, Camacho, and Amundsen. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Derek Jones appearance in the starting lineup for
Marino.
Well, we're not at that position. We're not there yet, but Jones for Morera. But yes, I do kind of see Marino Hinestrosa filling in on that. He's a left wing back. He can play right wing also.
He can play left, right, but he's also a forward.
So I would probably
up there in the striker.
Yeah, so I would probably say Hinestrosa in on the right wing back with Yeboah on the left, possibly. Or you could also throw in Derek Jones for, say, Darlington Nagbe and keep Morera in, or Aiden, because Derek Jones is a center back, center mid type of hybrid player.
Derek Jones was loved here in Houston, man. It just kind of didn't work out with him.
I do see Christian Ramirez getting the start over Alex Matan.
I think Nazi does save Matan for Saturday against Chicago.
Yeah.
I think he also saves Max Arfsten as well. Just because with him filling in for Mo right now. Who else is another winger that could go in?
You guys think, just from like the lineup that you guys are predicting, you guys definitely think that, not that the term is being taken seriously or not, but that Nazi's preferring to kind of keep the rhythm going in MLS more than the Champions Cup?
Not really. It's just how he played like the Open Cup last year and Leagues Cup. Just certain players were, either came on for first 45 minutes and then came off at halftime, or they didn't play at all. Like for keeper, Evan Bush was, in the Open Cup and in Leagues Cup.
Okay.
Schulte, gave Schulte, some rest that, quite frankly, he deserved, as a first-year starter in MLS, getting thrown to the Wolves. But other than that, there was other like Jason Russell Rowe got a start. Taha Hebron came in, in one of the Open Cups. So, it just was, it's the profile. He's always talking about the profile that he wants to use against, whoever they're going up against. So I think you still see, majority of the starting roster, but you just see little tweaks to it just because of certain players that he wants to keep fresh, for MLS. That's my opinion. I don't know about Ty.
No, I kind of agree with the same thing. We obviously know that Wilfred Nancy has a certain style of play and whatnot. I think now that this is his first time in CONCACAF Champions Cup, I think that we'll kind of see how Gerald said, a lineup that was similar to when we played Open Cup last year. We'll see some Crew 2 guys get called up for a short-term loan. We'll see some players who don't get any MLS minutes start to get thrown into the rhythm of Concacaf Champions Cup, or just thrown into the rhythm of his style of play in general. And then we'll also see some guys who play consistent 90-minute games, Aiden Moore, Darlington Nagbe, Morera, Cucho, Rossi, either play 45 or just kind of take the first leg off and see what we can do to kind of make it how we want to play in front of our fans the following week at home. But I think with it being, CONCACAF, MLS, CONCACAF, and then MLS again, I can see a little bit of both happening, right? I can see a little bit of tweaks here and there for CONCACAF, and then just turning right back around and throwing out our first 11 that we had against Minnesota, against Chicago. And then probably going back when we come home to play Houston at Lower.com Field. That same 11 who played in Houston this coming Wednesday is going to play at home. Or if he wants to just go balls to the wall and play the starting 11 that Chicago, he's going to play against Houston at home. We don't know. But as Gerald said, it's all about the profile, right? And that's one big thing that Nancy loves to harp on is, taking a look at the opposition and who can he throw into a certain position to kind of get the job done.
Yeah, because honestly, you talk about the depth with Houston, not really having, too much depth right now. Columbus, on the other hand, there's too much depth.
Sure.
There's too many talented players on that team that's one, either not getting minutes or they're getting very little minutes. And it's a good thing to have, right? All the depth pieces, especially with Columbus. I think me and Ty totaled it up close to 60 games this year. With Leagues Cup, CONCACAF, MLS. We have the Campeones Cup later on this year. I mean, there's so many games, so it's like having all those depth pieces, right, is good because of all the tournaments, but the travel factor and getting burned out, having to go from Houston on Wednesday night, Thursday morning back to Columbus, have Thursday afternoon, Friday, and then, walkthroughs on Sunday or Saturday, and then have an MLS game Saturday night. Then to turn around, 3 days, 3 days later on a Tuesday, have, another game at home. And then I believe the game after that is on the road. So it's just all that frequent travel, going from one time zone to the next. I think it burns you out a little quicker. And then, the elephant in the room, Houston's got a 12th man, out there with the heat.
Yeah, and I forgot to answer that question. Don't expect it. It's going to be maybe 80 degrees, which is still warmer than Salt Lake City was yesterday. So,
hey, keep that up there in Utah.
Right. So the weather may not necessarily be a factor, but it's probably going to be a little humid, just a tiny bit. So that also can kind of come and hurt some players as well. But I don't necessarily see it as a full factor, as it tends to be like last year playing in August for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was 100 some degrees.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, I think that midweek Houston game was probably the worst possible weather that we could have even experienced against you guys. But it's pretty.
It led to Cucho with a hat trick in Montreal the following game. So
it's pretty balanced between the two clubs. It looks like in total, both teams 8, 8, and 11, win, loss, tie. 11 draws between the two clubs is absolutely.
Mental.
It's just mind-boggling. But what really quick, Rudy, before we get into oh my gosh, I can't talk English. Before we get
Predictions.
into predictions, thank you.
Mhm.
What is one key to the game that Houston will have to do in order to pull out a win?
Really just staying composed, understanding that they attacking wise, there's not a lot the team has done. One player that I literally I don't know why I forgot to mention him. What Coco Carrasquilla? Coco Carrasquilla has been a player that I've known for Panama, very or known his game, his best game with Panama in the Gold Cup, being named the Gold Cup player of the tournament, and fans here in Houston were like, why can't we get the Coco that plays with that red jersey? Why can't he be the same with orange jersey? And right now, with Hector out, he's doing a little bit of the work that Hector did do, which was um, be a pivot point and play the long balls and breaking the opponent out wide. And he's done that. He's picked out Ibrahim Aliyu twice. The first one, Aliyu pitch right in the middle for Siegel to finish. And that one was against Sporting Kansas City in the home opener for the regular season. And just Saturday, he does the same thing, finding Aliyu, and Aliyu takes one touch with his chest and puts it in the back of the net. So that's just something that he's done very well for sure.
I think for Columbus, Joe, you can attest to this, is to not have a game like we had against Minnesota in the first half, because that was absolutely brutal.
It was.
The constant high press from Minnesota just absolutely ate us alive in the first half. How we pulled out of the first half with no goals conceded is beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
Schulte.
Yeah, that's big part with Schulte.
Yeah, Pookie had that one right in front of goal, and Schulte did such a great save there.
Oh my gosh. I was literally sitting in the press box. I'm currently in Minnesota right now, actually. I was sitting in the press box and I was just like, oh, there's a goal. Okay, wow. And just the press that he had on Marrero was just, oh man, I was nervous. I was just nervous as hell. But to not have a game, to not start the game like how we had against Minnesota and letting Houston just kind of pepper us with attack after attack after attack is definitely going to be the key for Columbus, and to kind of just settle in how we did to start the second half and dictate the game of how we want to play.
Stay on task
from Columbus. Yeah, Monty always talks about staying focused on the task. I don't know what the task is. I don't know if it's just the one game at a time, or if there's like something that he's embedded in the guys' brains that they don't want to share. I don't know what the task is. Try to pry it out of him before MLS Cup, didn't get it, but it is what it is.
I told you what it is. He gives players personal tasks to do each game.
Yeah,
and that's the one. Stay on task.
Now looking at predictions, obviously this is a 2-leg series. First tiebreaker is away goals. So Rudy, what is your prediction for the first leg in Houston this coming Wednesday?
For the first leg, I would want to say a win, obviously, just because that's what Houston does. But they just had a really awful game against New York. They didn't look the same. The first half, they started out well. They found the back of the net early on before New York tied them up, and then obviously eventually the game shift. And I don't know if it was maybe not necessarily that the tactics didn't work out, but New York looked a lot of very different from what they're used to. Obviously, everybody knows kind of how New York plays, right? A very high press, high motor team, and it was different. This time they're holding the ball a lot more, and no matter who came through Shell Energy Stadium, the Dynamo were always going to win in the possession. They're always going to hold the ball for longest spans of time. So with that being the case, having Columbus come visit, obviously much healthy, and having two great strikers in Ramirez and Cucho, I just going to find it difficult for Steve Clark to keep a lot of shots away from goal. So I don't want to be, and I'm never a pessimistic guy for my Houston Dynamo, but I think that Columbus will likely get the win in Houston if they can figure out a way to be dangerous on top. And I just don't see it. Again, Aliu has struggled, Siegel has struggled, and there's really nobody on that's taking on the other wing other than Dorsey. But there's been issues there with Coco and Dorsey basically taking away some of the space out wide. Um, so I'm thinking most likely 2-1 for Columbus in Houston.
Gerald?
I'm leaning that way as well, but I'm going 2-0. Cucho did have a career high 7 shots against Minnesota. So like you said, when you have a pairing like Ramirez and Rossi and Cucho, as well as Nagby and Yao, and even Max Arpston if he plays, some players that can put the shots on frame, and multiple shots at that, and get the rebounds. I think it's a 2-0 with Columbus coming back home, in the second leg.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way also. So I think we're all pretty much even across the board.
I hope I'm wrong. And I know you guys hope you're right. So I know the feeling, man. I know the feeling here.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's the biggest one. It's Houston. As you said, it's going to be a little humid. I don't think we do well in natural hot environments. Obviously, with Columbus, we have like 12 different seasons within a week or a day of something, so we're kind of used to elements. But I do think that this tie against Minnesota on the road is going to kind of give the guys a little bit of boosted momentum heading into Houston. They know what they need to do. They know what they didn't do, and that was close out the game against Minnesota. I think if Columbus can get a 2-1 heading into second half stoppage time, I think now they're going to start to play back, what they didn't do here in Minnesota and apply it to Houston, and that's close out the game. Whether it's if we're going to clear the ball out, just pop it in the row Z on the side for a throw in, kill some time off the clock, and whatnot, which is what they didn't do here in Minnesota. But I think Columbus takes it 2-1, and has both aggregate and away goal advantage heading into the second leg the following week. So we all say 2-1, but Rudy secretly hopes for probably 2-0.
Yeah, right. No, and I just want to finish that the Dynamo looked really. I mean, if you guys went back and looked even at the highlights for the last couple games for the Dynamo, they just looked like a shell of themselves. They just did not look like what Ben Olsen tested put out there. And I just wanted to add that we had one of our media family members pass away tragically a week ago, and so they were doing the remembrance of her, and who knows, that could have been heavy on the guys as well. I know that it was something that even Steve Clark mentioned midweek, when it was barely kind of out there in the news of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping that maybe that was what was kind of downing the mentality of the guys. So who knows? Maybe they come around and change their mentality when it comes to the Columbus game. At this point, we don't know, but it was just definitely a factor because you could feel this heaviness, just obviously all over the Houston soccer community for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I did see that. So definitely positive vibes and prayers sent to the Houston Dynamo and the soccer community down there. Rudy, to close out the show, we do have a little game that we like to play. It's called Yellow Card, Red Card. It does not have to be soccer related. So it can be anything from my buddy leaving in the middle of an Apex fight last night as a yellow card for me, to a red card of when I was on my way back here, a car going 120 miles per hour almost T-boned us on the highway. So I don't know. It could be anything. Yellow card is something you don't like, but you tolerate. A red card is something you absolutely hate. You can't stand it. You wish it never existed. So what would be your yellow card and red card?
Oh man, I wish you would have given me a little more time, because I find this question is a little bit more difficult than what you came up with. But let me see, a yellow card. If we're gonna bring it to soccer, I just think it's hilarious. But there's a really funny clip that I just saw. My friend is from Argentina and he shared it, and there's showing the Argentina league what a red card, like an actual red card, looks like, right? And it was hilarious because you hear the commentator. I mean, this guy came in like studs up, 2 feet up, straight to the guy's knee. And they did give the guy a red card. And the commentator was just so annoying because he kept saying, like, no, he just never saw the player. There's no way. Like, dude, it's flagrant. Like, this is prison time. Like, that to me is like something that just annoys the crap out of me. Yeah, dude. I'm gonna have to share that video with you on Twitter, man. But it was just so funny the way that the guy was. I'm like, that's my red card there. But as far as yellows, man, I don't know if I can come up with a good one or not, man. I think, I don't know. I think I'm not that great at this game after all, Ty.
It's all good. Jerald, obviously, we'll do ours Thursday when we record. Rudy, thank you so much for doing this, taking the time out of your day to do this. It's been fun. Where can the people find you at on social media?
Yes. So again, my name is Rudy Segura, and I contribute to Bayou City Soccer. BayouCitySoccer.net is a website, and you can find those on every social media outlet as Bayou City Soccer. So we are covering every game for Houston Dynamo as well as the Dash, and of course our MLS Next Pro team, Houston Dynamo too. So anything that you guys want to learn about the Bayou City, our beautiful city, check it out.
Rudy, thank you so much. This has been the Wismen Said podcast, powered by Yama Media. Ty Fisher alongside Jerald Lucas and Rudy Segura. Jerald, my friend, as tradition goes, Wismen say,
only fools rush in.
Peace out, everybody. Wednesday, what is it? 7 o'clock?
No, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock
Central.
At least he didn't say Tuesday.
Is it Fox Sports? Is it Fox Sports 2? What's it on?
Yeah, probably FS2. Yeah, you're right.
All right,
Wednesday, FS2.
Wednesday, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. Fox Sports 2, Columbus and Houston.
Oh, here's
Dynamo.
my yellow card. I just thought of that. Sorry.
Okay.
FS, they have the old logos for like all the teams. If you go into like look at them on their stream, they the old logos are still there. That's my yellow card, man. Annoys the crap out of me, but you know what? Sometimes we'll tolerate it a little bit.
All right.
I still got the Circle Columbus.
Oh my Jesus. Okay, well then. Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern, Fox Sports 2, Houston Dynamo taking on the Columbus Crew. This has been a Wismen Said podcast powered by Yama Media. See y'all later this week, actually, when we record. So, peace out.